you've grew up in the townships or in the locations as people always refer to it, you know that there's always a brown Mkhwanazi. We all have a brown Mkhwanazi, a man who's not questioned, a man who's used to getting away with it, to a point that he can even have a tavern, have it bombing with music the whole night, and no one in the community will ask, because this man is said to be very dangerous, he's said to be very moneyed and influential. Most of the time, these men are called brabizas, are called brajos. In most cases, they even speak Star. So, Brown Mkhwanazi is that person. And I think he's used to not being questioned. And in this video, I wanted us to talk about the last half of Brown Mkhwanazi, and I will focus on four things. The first thing that I'll focus on was the meeting that he had with Shadrack Sibiya, and they were discussing Khumalo as well as Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. I'll also talk about the disbandment of the PKTT. I'll talk about the funding, which was later said to be the funding of Senzo Mchunu's campaign, and later it was a funding or a donation that was given to a foundation or a charity. And then lastly, I'll talk about Vusumuzi CAT Matlals being labeled a criminal and the connections of him knowing the handler. So Brown Mkhwanazi yesterday in the last half, he continued with the lies. And what shocked me was how he actually admitted, because he said that false. And then he ended up saying true. And that question was about him actually talking about Mkhwanazi Khumalo and Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi in the context of them being arrested for defeating the ends of justice, especially in relations to the issue of Khan. And that man was recorded, who it was said that he was told by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi there was like a plot to get Khan removed in the subs. But now, since they have that recording that was leaked in the media, and then they lost the case against Khan, or the disciplinary proceedings against Khan, they then wanted to arrest them for defeating the ends of justice, especially those two. And in the meeting, there was Unkabinde, the chief of staff, Shadrack Sibiya, as well as Senzo Mchunu.
See, I want to put it to you that answer is self-evidently false, and that the Khumalo and Mkhwanazi's matters that you were referring to have to relate to something else.
Well, if you don't know, it's not true. It's not false. What I'm saying here is that they had to meet, and I was thinking, if Chief of Staff explains to the DNC exactly how he had, whatever that General Mkhwanazi was saying, was going to bring a kind of closure to the thinking of General Mkhwanazi.
You see, Mr. Mkhwanazi, you know what that meeting was about. The Commission can only draw its own inferences from what it sees in the evidence and any credible version that you put forward. And I'm going to put it to you that you haven't put forward any credible version, and so the Commission can only draw the most likely inference from what it sees in relation to all of these texts, which is that, having regard to the timeline, having regard to the fact that you sent these messages to the Minister, that the Mkhwanazi and Khumalo matters that you were referring to were your attempt to have General Mkhwanazi and General Khumalo charged with defeating the ends of justice in relation to the Khan inquiry. That's what the evidence points to. One sees it in the timeline, one sees it in your meeting with the source, where the three people who the source is encouraged to engage with are the Minister, the Chief of Staff, and General Sibiya. He doesn't see any other plausible explanation for what you were referring to in relation to the General Khumalo matter and the General Mkhwanazi matter. So unless you can give us one, we have to leave it at this point and draw the inference from the actual evidence that we have. So what are you saying these matters were?
It is obviously going to be what the senior counsel is saying, commissioners. If inference will only be taken from what the commission see at their disposal, being that they must believe, there is nothing I can do. On my side, I've just tried to say, like Madam Commissioner said, I did not bring anything. I said I have people, names, contact numbers who can corroborate something here. The Commission has never said what Senior Counsel is saying now, that they will take the information from those people, or they will ever allow me to bring that evidence. Or
who can we speak to corroborate your version that the meeting you were calling for here was to discuss what General Mkhwanazi had told the Chief of Staff in relation to you?
Those are the only two people we can speak to, General Sibiya and Chief of Staff. Particularly Chief of Staff will tell you exactly that no, after General Mkhwanazi called me, he did speak about Mr. Brown Mkhwanazi in this way, and Brown requested that we should have a meeting.
When did you make this request?
I cannot remember. We'll have to go to what was, obviously there are dates here, but I cannot remember specifically the time. I'll have to check when was that.
Obviously, as you guys have heard, he denied that. He became pink and purple and green, denying that that is even the case.
You see, what you say in this message, which was sent on the 26th of January, is that you were meeting with the Deputy National Commissioner and the Chief of Staff today, in other words, 26th of January, in Durban, for finalization of the Khumalo and General Mkhwanazi's matters. And so are you suggesting that you had arranged a meeting in Durban on the 26th of January for the Deputy National Commissioner and the Chief of Staff to get together with you to brief you on what General Mkhwanazi had said about you, and in the process to mention what he may or may not have heard from General Khumalo?
I was in Durban, the DNC was in Durban. I was requesting that the three of us could meet. That's what I'm trying to say, that Chief of Staff can come and narrate what he heard from Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi to the DNC.
Well, that's not what you were requesting. What you were saying in the first message is that you were meeting. You were going to meet with the DNC and the COS today. Not please can I, it's also meeting with the DNC and COS today in Durban for finalizations. So you're saying you had set up a meeting with them?
I had requested a meeting to set up.
So and you were hoping to meet as opposed to...
And it never materialized, that meeting.
Well, it partially materialized because apparently General Sibiya arrived for your meeting. Because your next text says DNC is waiting for the COS here. This is very significant.
But it did not materialize. Chief of Staff, the one who was supposed to come and relay the message, did not come.
See, but General Sibiya did come.
General Sibiya was in Durban already, and I've asked him to wait at that particular place. I was going to come in case the Chief of Staff arrived, so he did not come. Chief of Staff.
What was the particular place at which you were, at which General Sibiya was told to wait?
No, General Sibiya, he was in one hotel, I think Southern Sun.
Sorry, which hotel? Southern Sun Hotel?
In Durban.
Do you remember which Southern Sun?
No, but...
And is that where this meeting was going to take place?
No, he was at the Southern Sun at that moment. So I was telling the minister, please ask Chief of Staff to also come, because Sibiya was waiting. But the fact that he did not even answer the phone or responded, meaning Chief of Staff, I ended up not going myself. At some stage, I went to the airport and left.
According to him, the Mkhwanazi matter and Khumalo matter have nothing to do with that. He wanted to know what was discussed in the meeting that was called by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, citing the fact that he was very interested because of the fact that Mkhwanazi could call the same meeting. He had the right to also call the same thing to inquire as to what Mkhwanazi said about him to the Chief of Staff.
Do you think that it is a sensible use of the time of the Deputy National Commissioner and the Chief of Staff in the Minister's office for them to meet specifically to discuss what General Mkhwanazi may have said to the Chief of Staff about you?
It is. I don't know how this can be explained thoroughly. Including General Mkhwanazi himself, he did send a message to the minister that they must have a meeting and I must be present. It was testified in the ad hoc committee. But now, when it's me requesting, it becomes something else. General Mkhwanazi did ask the minister to call a meeting with the DNC and whoever. The minister did not do that meeting. But when it's me requesting just the 2 instead of 5, which General Mkhwanazi requested, this becomes so questionable in many ways.
There is a difference. If you're talking about a provincial commissioner in one province asking for a meeting with a deputy national commissioner to sort out relations within the top-level leadership of the South African police force, that makes sense.
With Brown Mkhwanazi present.
With Brown Mkhwanazi present, if Brown Mkhwanazi is interfering with those relations.
But my question is, isn't it that Brown Mkhwanazi does things based on the instruction of the handler? Was the handler aware that Brown Mkhwanazi is going to meet up with Senzo Mchunu, with Shadrack Sibiya and Cedric? Or the handler was actually in the meeting with those people? That is why the handler did not have a problem, because the handler was there. And from what we understood from the beginning of the testimony, it seems like Brown Mkhwanazi acts on the instruction of the handler. You cannot be an informant and go and find things that don't even concern you. What was the benefit of crime intelligence in them knowing about the business of Khumalo as well as Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi? That Senzo Mchunu is just a comrade. Hence, there's this growing momentum that Senzo Mchunu is a handler. And we'll discuss later as to why people say that Senzo Mchunu is the leader, especially in relations to that Cape Town trip that Vusumuzi CAT Matlals paid for. And it was said that later on, the identity of that handler was revealed, and Vusumuzi CAT Matlals was not supposed to know the details of that handler. We'll talk about that later on. But the question remains, in what capacity did he ask Senzo Mchunu? In the capacity of being a citizen or of being a comrade of Senzo Mchunu? Because he keeps on referring to that over and over again. It's easy to say that Shadrack Sibiya is the handler, because remember that Handler is someone that should be in crime intelligence that gives him the instruction. So since Shadrack Sibiya was also in the meeting, could it be that he's the handler? We know that MABIZELA is the co-handler. Could it be that Senzo Mchunu and Shadrack Sibiya are also involved in that handler thing? I made a video about Shadrack Sibiya being the handler or the co-handler. But now we see the emerge of Senzo Mchunu being the probable handler in this whole situation. So clearly, Brown Mkhwanazi agreed that the 26th message that are saying that we should finalize the Khumalo and Mkhwanazi matter, they were referring to the dismissal, actually the arrest of them defeating the ends of justice. So this is one example that shows you that they've always wanted to arrest the duo. Now moving right along to the second point, which was the campaign. Brown Mkhwanazi said that Vusumuzi CAT Matlals gave him the money and it was for campaign. I think it was for district or something like that. And it is said that actually that is not for that campaign, it was for Senzo Mchunu's presidential campaign. But he denied that that is the case, to a point that he even said that actually the money was supposed to be given to charity. Let me first play the clip on him denying that that was for Senzo Mchunu's presidential campaign.
Today is D-Day on the other side. I also think you must stand back, you say to Mr. Matlala. He says, stand back, I don't understand what you mean. You say for your safety and business, we must just fight what comes your way. And then he says, this won't change my contribution towards the minister, though. I made a conscious decision and I'm not backing down. Whatever help the minister needs from my side, I'll be happy to assist. I just don't want to fight losing battles. What does that sound like to you?
It doesn't sound like nothing. You are just saying you won't change his mind to contribute to the minister, and he has made that conscious decision, and you won't back down. Whatever help the minister needs from his side, he'll be happy to assist. So the minister.
What funding had you been asking him for?
No, we have not asked funding from him. He has not.
Sorry, Mr. Mkhwanazi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you're trying to explain away D-Day, you were trying to persuade the Commission that D-Day was the deadline for his contribution to January 8th. You recall that?
That's correct.
And that was for funding?
For the celebration of FIANCée members traveling day.
Yes, but on the same day as that happens, he says to you, this won't change my contribution towards the minister, though. I made a conscious decision and I'm not backing down. Whatever help the minister needs from my side, I'll be happy to assist.
Yes, he said so.
What help did you think he had in mind?
Remember, it was only after he has met with the minister, he would declare what he would want to contribute. So far, he has not met with the minister. And when I try to digest this, I find it very difficult to explain this, that maybe a knowledge of how campaigns are done. This is not the way campaigns are done. Campaigns, you don't just meet Mr. Brown alone and he tells you about campaigning and he gives you money. Campaigns are done differently.
Well, let's see what he says immediately after he says, let's see what happens immediately after he says, I'm not backing down. Whatever help the minister needs from my side, I'll be happy to assist.
Yes,
so that is at 11:40 at the bottom of page 59. If you go to the top of page 60, what do you say? You say, here is our backlog, and we now need to deal with this. It's the last day. I thought we spoke about it, but we did many regions. It's only 2 regions left. Is it possible for you to intervene on the membership for 2 regions, 12.5K each, because today we must pay?
Correct, but all these messages they don't talk about. You see, it is going to be very unbelievable. Even in my region right now, they were going to the regional conference. Doesn't need Matlala or the minister to be involved. This that you see, people talking about regions and so forth, it happens every time when conferences or celebration comes.
You know what's crazy about this thing is how the woman of Brown Mkhwanazi was used to advance this criminality. Hey, and especially in this day where we are celebrating or we are trying to march against the GBV of women, it's so shocking how women are also finding themselves or putting themselves in very dangerous positions. Look at what Brown Mkhwanazi's wife did, or fiancé. Keep on putting himself in these positions that monies that are meant for these corrupt natures and that are meant for Abu Brown Mkhwanazi and the ministers and the so forth, they go through her account. It links back to her. And look at her now, she's in trouble. We want to see that lady in the commission. We want her to answer. Because we women, just because we want soft life, just because we want a good life, you put yourself in such dangerous situation, your bank account being used as a harbor to wash criminality money. I don't know how women feel about that.
Managed to push. We only need for those 2 regions. Then you send a bank account of an OD Lekwaba. Who's OD Lekwaba?
That was for Devon, yes, it's the same, my fiancé.
So, but who is OD Lekwaba?
It's my fiancé.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you send your fiancé's bank account.
Yes.
And you say we need 25K only. And then at 1910, you say we'll engage with everything and anything we need, my boss. The problem is we're going to lose voters in the 2 regions.
That's correct.
How are you going to lose voters? Who are those voters there to vote for?
No, every region, you see, it should not be that it's for the presidential. Senzo does not contest in those regions. The assistance was directed to those regions.
So what is the voter issue?
The voters are members that should be assisted. Those are voters.
Members that should be assisted to do what?
In their own regional programs.
You see, Mr. Mkhwanazi, what this looks like to me, and I would submit to anybody else who looks at it sensibly, is that Mr. Matlala says, I'll do anything that you want to support the minister. I'm here to help the minister. And you then say, well, give me 25,000 to pay for these 2 regions, because otherwise we're going to lose voters. That's the help the minister wants.
Unless if I have written, okay, let me stick to the minister, or the minister saying you must pay 25K. This should not be mixed with that.
So I think they used the account because they felt like that is not traceable. And another thing that I always ask myself, he even referred to Vusumuzi CAT Matlals as boss. How does someone who's your project, you end up calling them a boss? He thinks you are all from Kuzuki land.
That's the WhatsApp that you fabricated to send to Mr. Matlala, pretending to, or masquerading as a WhatsApp to the Chief of Staff. You remember that?
That's correct.
And you created that to look like an authentic exchange between yourself and the Chief of Staff, even though it was fabricated.
That's correct.
So it was designed to say what Mr. Matlala wanted to see you saying to the Chief of Staff. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Can we go down to, well, 112, what's forwarded there is the letter of complaint from inside SAPS. And then 113 is the key piece that you want Matlala to see. You want to see that you're fighting his cause. And there you pretend to be saying to the Chief of Staff, this matter may be escalated to you because of non-performance. Our guy needs your intervention. January 08 guy who's about to take over our program. What are you saying there?
The fact that the message is fabricated, I was trying to show him that it is the guy of January 8, it is the guy who wants to take over the program.
And what's that program?
As you say, remember I was telling you about this the charity organization in the KZN. This is the one. It's not the president.
So it's not a political campaign now, it's the minister's private charitable foundation.
Yes, this is what I also told you.
And it seems like the way this picture is being drawn, it seems like he was using the name of the minister to get the money.
Commissioner, I get confused that, well, I sent this message and I've said it so many times that if it was CAT, perhaps I could have identified him differently as opposed to this.
If it wasn't CAT, why did you bother sending this to CAT?
Is to show him that I'm working and I'm very close to the minister and I'm doing something every day. That's, you know, he knew that he has the minister's name all the time. And he did not, that's why sometimes he'd even say, I see you're sending me so many things. What is this? What are you talking about?
So this is just another unfortunate coincidence. You send to CAT a text that looks for all the world that it's referring to him, but actually it isn't.
I don't know what Commissioner is saying to be a coincidence here.
You see, Mr. Matlala, I'm reminded of what the villain says in one of those early James Bond movies, which is, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action.
Him now fabricating messages, moving from a charity to, moving from a campaign to charity. He was just being an extortionist. He was just taking money from Vusumuzi CAT Matlals. But we later find out that actually, even Vusumuzi CAT Matlals was getting approval from Maumere, who allowed, because they were business partners. I don't think Vusumuzi CAT Matlals was just taking out money to giving it to Bram Mkhwanazi without Maumere knowing. I think Maumere was aware of everything that was going on. So Vusumuzi CAT Matlals now is giving money to Bram Mkhwanazi in the name of he wants to meet the Senzo Mchunu minister, and the handler is keeps on saying no, that those two cannot meet. So I feel like him jumping the gun by saying that no, I was not taking the money, I was not extorting him, or in the name of the minister. He's the one who said it, meaning he busted on himself. The commissioners never asked him of that. Even the SC never asked him of that. So he in a way, it was trebile, without even the commissioners even saying that, oh, so you were using this guy to get money and lying on the minister.
Why would CAT Matlals be discussing with you a contribution towards the minister on the 31st of December 2024? If it has never come up before, why would he suddenly be talking about a contribution towards the minister?
It was his wish that he will meet with the minister and he will want to contribute for whatever the minister wants. And like I said, if there's any other thing that from the investigation that I picked up, in the midst of all these things, Matlala initially in December the 7th, he told me he wants to meet the minister, he has a problem with his tender, he wants to meet the minister, and once he can meet the minister, he can help him, he can do whatever. Business people do say such things. The important thing is to not put the minister close to this person. That was the instruction of the handler. And they did not meet, he did not even give the minister a cent.
But when Advocate Chaskalson put to you that this is what CAT Matlala thought he was doing, you said no, that's not the case. CAT thought he was contributing towards the ministers.
No, it was not for the minister. Me and him never agreed that the minister's program is starting now, please contribute to the minister's saving. We never. And I'm not in a position, that's not my capacity, to can ever or look for money in the name of the minister. People who can look for money in the name of the minister are those he appoints to run probably his campaign at the right time.
As he said that he wanted to give Vusumuzi CAT Matlals false hope that he's doing something and that he's the man of the minister, he's close to the minister. He wanted to do that. Why? What was going to be the benefit? Is it because it's your project? Or what else? It seems like it's because if he can keep on pushing that narrative, he can get more money for himself. Now let us talk about the disbandment of the PKTT. So he said that he knew about the letter and sent the letter on the 1st of January to Vusumuzi CAT Matlals about the disbandment of the PKTT. However, Advocate Chaskalson challenged that and said, no, actually, by the time you sent the letter or you sent the message that the letter the team has been disbanded, the news were not yet that public.
No one received to accept to have received the letter. All of them say they got it from the social media. My contention, commissioners, is that the recipient of that letter is the one who leaked it because it was against the wish.
I'm not accusing you of leaking it.
No.
I'm just putting to you that you were aware of the information before it was publicly available on social media.
I was not aware. There was no way I could be aware.
Well, if you can track the source from which you found that letter, I would be very interested in knowing that source, because we see no evidence whatsoever of any publicly available source speaking to that letter before 21:32 on the 2nd.
It was not verified news, meaning it was not verified fact that the PKTT is disbanded. It was just news. And if you guys remember with Mkhwanazi Khumalo, he said that he woke up to this news that the PKTT has been disbanded on the 1st. However, he said that he never took that as something that is official. Hence, even when Shadrack Sibiya sent him emails asking about the docket and the reports, he never really gave focus on that because we're still waiting for the National Police Commissioner to come back on leave and verify those news. That is when they're going to see this as a formality. Hence, before then, nothing was done. Everybody was still continuing with their work as if nothing happened. And then when the minister came back and they started having the first meeting about the disbandment and all of that, that is when they started preparing the reports and giving the minister the reports as to the winding down process or what they've done, why they think the team should not be disbanded, all of that. The SC is right. In a way, Mkhwanazi lied because that was not verified news. That disbandment was not yet verified. And it is true that Mkhwanazi knew about the disbandment before the disbandment. And him talking about him, there's some point that he said which made me remain with a question mark. He spoke about something being leaked.
Yes, but you wouldn't want to give him crime intelligence classified information.
That's correct. Except for if like he has powerful media control, unless if I want to publish something I can give to him.
So if you want to leak something out into the press, you can get it that way through Mr. Matlala.
I could, not only him, but he's one of the people I could use.
As you guys have heard, he says that he uses the information that he gets from Matlala because Matlala is connected to ministers to leak certain information. Could it be that Shadrack Sibiya gave this informer yake as the handler to leak this information? There's between these two, between Shadrack Sibiya and Mkhwanazi, one of them leaked the information about the disbandment of the PKTT and that letter. I'm telling you guys, we'll find that later on as to who actually leaked this information. And he said something really shady about this PKTT going to Limpopo and not in KZN. Hey, Mara Brown, he's saying unnecessary things that I don't think are important.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it, commissioners. My only wish is that maybe this PKTT now, if it still exists, should maybe be given to Limpopo to run it, or how they must say. This PKTT, for it to be based in KZN, it is a problem. Maybe it should be given to General Asani Northwest or someone, because just to see what will happen if it is administered or managed by different people. Thank you, Commissioner.
Then he spoke about the dockets, the fact that the dockets were given to Shadrack Sibiya. And the commissioners asked, how did you know? Because from Mkhwanazi, the dockets were supposed to first go to the station of origin and not to Shadrack Sibiya. But when you go and you tell this person on the 1st of January that the dockets are going to go to Shadrack Sibiya, how did you know? And he kept on saying it's common sense, it's common sense. No, it's not common sense. Let me play the clip of what happened with regards to that argument.
The evidence leader advocate Senzo in line 11 asks this question. If a task team in KwaZulu-Natal is disbanded, and I'll assume for purposes of this question that it is correctly disbanded, what automatically happens to those dockets that the task team handled? And Gen Mkhwanazi responds, the case dockets commissioners belong to a police station. The cases opened at a police station get registered. It's going to have a case number of a particular police station. The docket might be investigated by a specialized unit, a task team, or whatever that is established, but in conclusion thereof, it goes back to the police station where it was registered. So if there was a decision to stop the work of this task team on dockets that are already finalized, will need to be returned back to the stations, and dockets that are still under investigation will also need to be returned back to the very same stations, so that those dockets will be allocated to different investigators at the station, so the work or investigation work can continue. So the provincial commissioner said, well, in the ordinary course of events, you would expect dockets to go back to the police stations. But his wasn't the only evidence, because then we heard the evidence of Major General Motsepe. She's actually in General Sibiya's office, and she is the general in the office of General Sibiya who was ultimately tasked with responsibility for these very dockets. And she made clear in testimony before this commission a few days before you testified that it was not common sense for the dockets to be brought back to General Sibiya's office. And I can just read what she said at page 10 of the transcript of her evidence. She says, what I'm trying to say from the onset, there were no proper explanation to me why the dockets were taken here. So the very person in General Sibiya's office who was given responsibility for the office said she had no explanation as to why they would come to her or to her office. So the generals in SAPS wouldn't have predicted that the dockets would go to General Sibiya, but you managed to predict that several months before it happened. How was that?
It happened.
I don't know, guys, what you make of this disbandment. I think that Bra Mokgotsi and Shadrack Sibiya are definitely working together, and I still believe that Shadrack Sibiya is the handler. However, there's a new thing that has come that makes everybody to think that Senzo Mchunu is also the handler, which leads me to the fourth point about Vusumuzi CAT Matlals being a criminal. So Bra Mokgotsi agreed that Vusumuzi CAT Matlals is a criminal.
And you were handled by the late warrant officer MABIZELA and your second handler, whose name you've given to the commission. And you were briefed by General Sibiya on both of these investigations at a certain point.
I briefed him.
You briefed him. And if I understood your evidence correctly, the understanding was that your handlers would keep General Sibiya appraised of what was going on with your investigations.
To keep General Sibiya?
Yes, to keep filling him in. General Sibiya would need to know what you were doing.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, these were two separate operations, were they not?
That's correct.
And it would be important, given the nature of the different targets, to keep those operations separate.
No, not necessarily. You cannot keep them separate.
Well, let me put this to you. CAT Matlala was a suspected criminal, is that not right? You suspected him of criminally securing the SAPS contract through corrupt means.
That's correct.
So it would be important to keep crime intelligence investigation material away from Mr. Matlala, so that the suspected criminal wasn't given access to classified information from crime intelligence.
Mr. Matlala is not these amateur criminals. He belongs to this league of, like you say, he's close to generals.
And he said that he's in his own league and stuff like that. I think that when he said he's in his own league, he means that he was part of the Big Five. And he just changed that a little and said he knows ministers. But if you guys can look at his expression, he was trying to say, he was going to say that he's in his own league, he knows people, and is part of this big syndicate, and probably referring to the Big Five. And then he starts talking about Matlala paying for handler when they went to Cape Town. And that was questioned because Matlala is not supposed to know the handler. Matlala is not supposed to meet Senzo Mchunu. So if Matlala can know the handler, can know Senzo Mchunu, and might want to meet Senzo Mchunu. So now giving the Cape Town information will make it easier for this man to want to meet Senzo Mchunu, because Senzo Mchunu is also what? The handler. I don't know if you guys can understand what that means. Hence, I see this growing discourse of people saying that Senzo Mchunu is the handler. which means that Senzo Mchunu has really interfered a lot with the work of the police if now he's the handler, because the handler is someone that has to be in crime intelligence. So if Senzo Mchunu now has interfered, which means interfered is so deep that now he has interfered in the run or in the daily run of the SAPS or crime intelligence, because you can't be a handler on the day-to-day and you're a minister. What are your duties, Gant, as a minister? Don't you have other things to do?
You say there that you got Mr. Matlala to pay for your handler to travel to Cape Town for the January 8th celebrations.
That's correct. That's correct.
He was one of the passengers who Mr. Matlala paid for.
That's correct.
Why? Wasn't there a risk that you would expose your handler's details to Mr. Matlala, who was the criminal you were investigating? I mean, you had to give him a copy of your handler's ID book to book the air ticket.
That was not in the mind. What was in the mind was to make sure that the co-handler and the partner are both in Cape Town.
Well, you did have to give details, including an ID number of your co-handler and an ID book to get the air tickets booked and paid for by Mr. Matlala.
That's correct.
So Mr. Matlala ended up with details of the identity of your handler, even if he didn't know that it was your handler.
That's correct.
You say it was important for your co-handler to come down to Cape Town.
True.
Why?
There was an operation to take place in Cape Town. Again, there were so many people involved. And lastly, if CAT could ever come to Cape Town, because the plan was to inform him in the last minute, if ever it could come to Cape Town, my co-handler should also be there.
You said earlier that it was clear that Matlala was never going to meet the minister, who wasn't even in Cape Town, or Sibiya, who you were going to offer him as a consolation prize. It was clear that that wasn't going to happen.
Yes.
So why did you need your handler there?
No, instruction of the handler, I can't say I don't need the handler. If they say we're going to Cape Town, no problem, but make sure you are with whoever, that's what must happen.
And also, he spoke about Matlala Sibiya. I think this one, the SC was trying to give it to us that Shadrack Sibiya is the handler. Because he said, did Shadrack Sibiya know that you gave the details of the handler to Vusumuzi CAT Matlals? Okay, now for Shadrack Sibiya on the details that have to be sent about handlers to Vusumuzi CAT Matlals. That is because Shadrack Sibiya gave that command that these two are not supposed to meet.
So did General Sibiya know that your handler was in Cape Town? Did he authorize getting CAT Matlals to pay for your handler's flight down to Cape Town, giving your handler's ID to CAT Matlals?
General Sibiya didn't know that the handler was in Cape Town. He didn't even have to know. An operation carried out in that form, we could not even inform him.
But General Sibiya himself was in Cape Town.
He was in Cape Town.
You told Mr. Matlala that. I think the relevant message is at page 85 of the annexure bundle. There on the 8th of January, at 17:53, you texted Mr. Matlala and you said, I'm in Cape Town, Sibiya's in Camps Bay.
That's correct.
Was General Sibiya in Camps Bay?
I knew he was going to stay in Camps Bay. He was not yet there. He was on duty.
And didn't want this Vusumuzi CAT Matlals to know who's the actual handler. That is because Shadrack Sibiya himself is the handler. And even Shadrack Sibiya was also in Cape Town. Are you telling me that all of this, guys, is just a coincidence? Oh, what, guys? I don't know what you guys make of this last half of Bram Mkhwanazi, but this is very questionable behavior from Bram Mkhwanazi, and I hope I've break it down to you guys to understand some of the things that are giving it to us to understand this whole thing. It's just us having to look at the detail to understand. Do you think Bram Mkhwanazi is the Brabiza in your township? Because I think this man is untouchable. Hence, he's fumbling in the commission because he's not used to being challenged. He's not used to people pointing him out. Even when he was raided, community was like, give him an opportunity to talk in Matlala, because he's that person that is used to being covered because he's always bribing people. He's the go-to guy in the township. You know, I know that there's that man that we know, he lives, his house is so big, it's so nice. You don't touch him. You don't try. So I think Bram Mkhwanazi is like that. Hence, he's fumbling in the commission and his testimony is bad. It's not straight at all. What you guys think? Please comment your thoughts. I will see you guys on my next upload. Bye.